This video is powered by USAGundam. Visit USAGundamstore.com and enter the code JOEY10 to receive 10% off your next purchase. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at my final product of the Gundam Artifact Kit, the Hi-Nu Gundam Artifact Kit. This was probably one of the most challenging things I've done to date, mainly because of the size of it, but also the complexity and the size of it. So this thing has a lot of parts, no hollow areas, and tons of detail on each little part for what it is. So, of course, first step was always prep. So prepping it was probably one of the hardest parts of it. Seam line removal, of course, I used the Tamiya thin cement and also putty on top of that because the seam lines were so big in some areas that the cement just didn't work as well as putty, so I puttied it up. Then, of course, I had to do some modifications. So one big modification is I actually cut down that V-fin. It was really, really wide. Didn't really like it that much, so I wanted to thin that up, make it look more, I guess, Gundam-esque. Also, I went through and rescribed pretty much every line on the kit. All the details are a little bit shallow if you're going to be painting this thing, especially, you know, in certain areas. So I went and rescribed every line using a 0.1 millimeter and a 0.15 millimeter, and I think on the side of the chest I use a 0.3. So, of course, after scribing, had to sand down every single part again, and also I wanted to make it where I could get the seam lines around the side of the body. So to do that, I ended up actually cutting the mushroom pegs off of, or the little mushroom piece off the mushroom peg on the neck and arms, and ended up just gluing those inside the chest and then doing the seam line removal around, so therefore I had a place to actually glue the arms and head on later. So unfortunately the arms and head are static, but I would rather sacrifice the movement and be able to you know, get a good seamless seam line you know, around the sides. So I did that, and then of course then it was finally time to prime. So I primed up all the parts, and then I was able to see all the little details, or all the little imperfections that I couldn't see whenever it was all tan, that I had to then readdress with some more putty and stuff like that. And then I was finally able to do the final prime. After that, it was basically just airbrushing from there. Oh, one thing I also did on the modifications is on the arms and feet, I ended up basically cutting a C into the circles. They were like little circles on top of the heel and on the top of the arm that you just slipped into onto a peg. So I modified those so that I could just click those into place at the very end after seam line removal and all that good stuff. Then it was time for masking and painting. Now, as far as the paint goes, I used Gaianotes for basically everything. The little bit of reverse wash and hand paint that I used was Testors Model Masters enamels. It was the Gunship gray. And I used Testors for the eyes, which was like a lime green or like a fluorescent green. And speaking of the eyes, I ended up using my wife's nail art brush. It comes to a very, very tiny point. I ended up using that to do the eye detail and a magnifying glass because it was so tiny and so tedious to do. But after a bunch of masking, a bunch of airbrushing, and some Tamiya panel line accent, and a little bit of reverse wash here and there on the dark gray areas, this was the final product of my labors. I'm very happy with the final product of this kit. I hold it in my hand and I'm just still taken back of how small it is, and it definitely earned its nickname that I gave for it. It's Tiny Demon because it was definitely a love-hate relationship. Looking back now, it was worth all of the headaches and all that stuff. and I'm very happy with the final result. So I hope you guys like the build as much as I do. I do look forward to doing the Nightingale, but I definitely think I'm going to hand paint the Nightingale and see how I do with that. I haven't really hand painted anything yet, other than little bitty details and stuff, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I think that's going to do it for this little overview of my little artifact kit. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoy it. It was, like I said, one of the hardest things that I have done so far. It almost broke me, but I pushed through and I got it. And I am absolutely in love with the final product of this thing. So, as always, a like and subscribe would be appreciated if you enjoyed this. And I will see you in the next one.